a bit of an audience today. We've got students of the Fine Arts Department at the University of Agriculture. I'm told that there's representation from 3 other universities. And the session is also running live on YouTube. I will share the link with yourself as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm extremely pleased to welcome Malak, who has joined us today, who's been very kind to take the time out to speak with us today. This was very impromptu and very quick. It happened quite suddenly, and I'm happy that she could take out the time. I know it's a little late for us. It's just past 6 p.m., but nevertheless, I'm glad that a lot of people could make it. Malak, I think I will take this over to you. I'm sure you have a presentation, and then maybe after that presentation, we'll open the whole floor for some questions. And we're just looking forward to listening from you and talking about your art. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Nihal, and thank you so much everyone who's joining us. I'm really pleased that 53 people are joining, and that's really exciting. So I'm going to actually present my art and my life, where I come from, and my artwork in general, and also a little bit about my children book that I published this year. So I will share screen. 1 second. Can you enable me to share screen, please? All right, 1 second. All right. So first of all, thank you again for joining me. My name is Malak Mattar, and Malak in Arabic means queen or angel, and Mattar means rain. I come from the Gaza Strip, but the fact that I am a refugee in the Gaza Strip because in 1948, my family were displaced from their original village, which is called Al Jora village. Unfortunately, my family were promised to return to their homes after 3 weeks of the Nakba, which happened in 1948. And these 3 weeks have turned into 74 years. Unfortunately, all my ancestors, my grandparents have died dreaming of the right of return, but they have not. So I was able to imagine my village through their own narratives, the color of the building, which was white, the position of it, which was opposite the sea, and many more beautiful details. So this is my neighborhood, and it lies on the Mediterranean Sea. As you know, or maybe you have heard of the Gaza Strip, it's currently under siege. So it means that the Gaza Strip, it's a very small strip in Palestine, 365 kilometers, and it's imprisoned and also caged by a metal wall that prevents any Gazan to leave the strip, and also the sea is occupied. What I mean by occupied is if you cross the sea by the certain miles that are allowed by the occupation, you'll get shot. So that's why many fishermen, when they accidentally cross the miles, they get immediately shot by the navies. As I lived near the sea, the risk of losing life was so high because there were navies that were throwing rockets from the sea, from the sky, and also from the ground by the tanks. So I grew up in a very beautiful family, very connected. My family from my mom's side were more into art, music. My uncle in the picture, he is an established Palestinian artist, and my grandfather was a poet. So I grew up with this beautiful artistic atmosphere that really encouraged me to self-express myself through artwork. And the medium I have chosen is visual art, so more into painting and a little bit into sculpture. So this is my grandmother, and as I said, she was only very little when she was forced to leave her home back in 1948. She was my inspiration into painting more women because I was always inspired by her resilience, by her strength, and also by the stories she told me. She got married really early and she raised 9 children. So I was always fascinated by everything she was telling me and the stories of her struggle, but also the joy she created. as well the struggle she faced under the occupation, under the Israeli occupation, where she's banned entry to her home in the village. She has experienced a lot of trauma in her life. She lost family members due to the Intifada, the first and the second. So she's a reason why she's one of the inspirations of why I focus on women in my artwork. So here's to that tragic part in my life. I'm now 22 years old, but I have witnessed 4 Israeli wars on my city. I remember back in 2008, I was doing my final exams. And, this time of the year is always very stressful. Every student is preparing. I was only 8 years old, and I got into the school, and we've started solving the questions. And suddenly we had this emergency, and everybody was running. Teachers were getting into the classes and asking everyone to leave and asking students to flee. So it was a very surreal scenes of hundreds of students running, and many of them did not know where to go. So my mom was a teacher, and she picked me up from the school, and we arrived home. So for you to visualize what war means, it's actually a very traumatic experience, because you can survive war, but you can also not survive war. And what I mean is, like, you get into it as a person, you leave it as a new person, because the trauma of the war is one of the strongest trauma in the human's history, because it's beyond one understanding. You cannot understand how a plane and put in top of you will throw you a very tons of metal over your head that will terminate your life and your family's life. So I arrived home and I thought I'm safe, but then I realized that everywhere around you is getting bombed. The sounds of the bombing shakes your home. You see people getting killed. I remember people in my street used to be shot and killed in front of my eyes. So it was very traumatic, and it affected me a lot. It affected my how I feel around people, and how I feel in my own city. I did not feel safe. I always had nightmares of being killed, because I saw a lot of traumatic and graphic scenes in TV, in real life, and it affected my memory as a child. So in 2012, I went back to school again, and I survived another war. So my story will sound repetitive in a way, because I survived so many wars. But in 2012, I went back to school. And I survived a longer war that was more damaging. The loss were higher, like thousands of people were losing their lives. So in 2014, I went back to also to normal life, and then I survived the longest war ever. It was 51 days, and that was a breaking point in my life. My grandmother lost her home. We had losses for so many relatives, because over 2,000 people were killed. I was like in a lockdown all the time, and we did not have electricity. We did not have proper life needs. So it was quite traumatizing. And this is the time where I had several breakdowns, because my neighborhood was heavily attacked, and my neighbor, she lived one block away, she was cut into pieces. And sorry for using these graphic terms. So I was like, it was a slap in the face, because you see and you hear and you know that you might lose your life, but your mind in a way wants to survive. It wants to live, because you don't feel at the age of 14 or 15, you feel it's too early to lose your life. And so we always have this lying hope that we will make it. But once you survive it, it's not it. Once you survive, you have a long way of healing, of a processing, of living with constant conflict. It's the war that you see in external life, it internalizes inside you, and you live in constant war every day. So in 2014, during this time, I wanted to get my energy out. I wanted to uh, discharge my negative feelings, my trauma feelings. And I had in the back of my head that art is a way of self-expression. We did not have any person we could speak to. It was felt like a luxury because we are all under this together. So I started making a lot of sketches, how I felt, and then I started using watercolor. It was the first medium I used. This painting, it was a dream of how I would want my city to be peaceful, having a sunny day. And as you see under this woman arm, it's the destroyed buildings that I've seen with my eyes. And this is the key of return. This is a key that I always saw as a kid in the wall. It's the key of my grandmother, who had this key because she knew that she would return, but unfortunately she received the news that her home was completely demolished. So all these small symbols were in my mind when I did this painting. So I started painting more about the Palestinian beauty and experience. As you see, the woman is pregnant, and uh, ironically enough, one of my cousins, she was born during the attack. I believe she was born in her home because there were no ways to get into the hospitals. We had this emergency. So I remember that I was always fascinated how hundreds of people lose their lives, and at the same time, hundreds of newborn babies are born during the time of the attack. So I had always this fascination of the philosophy of life and death in war zones. I started during this time, I started developing my own style. I did not really struggle much to have my own style because I felt, in a way, I was born with it. Of course, with time, improved, but I felt like there was always something in me that wanted to be expressed, and visual art was more encouraged during the time of a crisis, which is the time of attack. In the Gaza Strip, it's in fact unlivable. So what I mean by unlivable, it's inhabitable. It's not suitable for human lives because the electricity is very minimal. It's only 4 hours to 8 hours of electricity. Of course, none of this in the time of wars. The water is unfortunately unclean because as a result of the lack of electricity. So I was more connected to the nature. At night, at morning, when we did not have electricity, I was always reflecting on my surrounding. And I was only 15 when I did this painting, and I was reflecting at the night because we did not have any light, and the only light was getting in was the light of the moon. It was a very dim light, and I felt like at this time, what if we could have this moon in our homes so it can lighten our homes and we can do what we want, because life without electricity is really bad. So this painting, I called it Electricity, and yeah. So this painting, as I previously mentioned, the Gaza Strip is a prison. It's in fact not a prison, it's a ghetto, because the people, the 2 million that live inside this strip, are in fact, they did not really do anything. They were born Gazans, and this is the sin. You are born into this place, you survive wars, you lose your loved ones, you live through a lot of economic crisis. So this painting of a dream I had, I started getting exposure when I was really young, because it's more like despite of war, there are artists. Despite of the attack, artists are painting their own life. Art is healing, and all these titles that were attached to my art. And my art is beyond this because it was a way of survival. I do survive more because I understand myself more, I process more. So when I was 16, I got this invitation to travel to the UK and have my first international exhibition. And as I mentioned before, you cannot really travel. So it was quite, there was a rage inside me because I had my exhibition, I wanted to travel, and I felt at the point, although my artwork was shipped from the Gaza Strip through Israel, although there's a risk of it because Israeli soldiers, they open the artwork to see if it's political or not, if it's safe or not to be sent. So there's always fear of your artwork getting confiscated. So I had this painting, I called it The Cage. And I painted the face as a newspaper because I felt I'm not painting myself. I'm not painting a specific person. I'm painting the 2 million people that have never traveled within the time of siege and the time of prison. And, the suitcase is like the readiness to travel at any time there is an opportunity. I felt always when I was in Gaza, and even now that I'm not in the Gaza Strip, I feel there's a cage inside me. Although I travel here and there, but I think when you grow up in a cage, the concept of freedom becomes too big to understand. Like, what is it to be free? Is it to be in a plane and travel, or is it the freedom from the colonization or from the occupation that was implanted in your mind as a kid? So this painting, these paintings are really my earliest artwork. So it's my early art career. This is also a concept, or I would say, visualizing what freedom could feel for me, which is to be free from the cage that was you born with. So I will stop in this painting to mention the story behind it. Um, I live opposite the sea, so I see quite the scene from there. And I remember the murder of the 4 children, my neighbors from Al Bakir family. They are known family with fishing, and like it's a quite a popular family in my neighborhood. I remember we heard a very loud bombing that was happening just a few miles away. And these sounds were so traumatizing. And I remember uh, after I heard the sound, we thought it was the beginning of a new war. And then we've heard the news that 4 children, all less than the age of 10, were killed while playing football. And it's not a beginning of war. It was actually in the middle of war when we had few days of ceasefire. So these children, they were celebrating these few days of ceasefire, and they went to the sea to play football. And they were all killed, and that was a very traumatic experience because imagine you are going to really to breathe outside of your home because you are locked down all the time, and you lose your life while playing. And it was not a mistake, it was systematic killing of these 4 children. So I remember the mother of these kids, she said, I live opposite the sea, but I cannot look at it because it reminds her of the loss of her children. So this painting, it's like a wish, like why can't we as children, like, remove anything else, just the fact that you are children, a child, why can't you just play without the fear of losing your life? And I remember as a kid, we were not allowed to look at the sky. And I was thinking of it recently because now I have hard time looking at the sky because we had this fear. If you point your finger out in the sky, uh, you would be seen by the military plane and you will be killed. So it's in these simple details you find death, you find fear, you find a trauma in every single detail, in the sea, in the plants, in the sky, in the ground. So the occupation is not only occupying your land, it occupies your mind. It occupies it with fear. It occupies it with living in this crisis all the time. So this is, a simple wish. We are humans. We wish to have these simple rights, which is traveling, working, life, electricity, and hope, which is very basic human rights. Um, I think that this woman, because she's one of the people that really changed my life and also changed the direction of my artwork. Her name is Razan, and she was my age. During the Great March of Return, it was more like a demonstrations, very popular demonstrations that started during the 2018. It happens every Friday. The Palestinians, they revolt in the border of their, how can I say, in the border of their city, of the Gaza Strip. And it's just a reminder, it was a peaceful demonstrations, uh, you know, to remind politicians or to remind the occupation that we have not forgot the right of return, the right to return to our homes, even after 73 years. And also a reminder to get our human rights back because the Gaza Strip lives really unlivable conditions. So she was a medic, she was a young medic, she was helping injured people, she saved the lives of tens because the Israeli soldiers used to shoot people while protesting. They were shooting them, especially in their parts, in their arms, in their legs, to paralyze their movements. So they were targeting the younger people. And I remember also children, few months and few years were also killed because of the tear gas that was so toxic. So Razani Najjar was killed, was shot in the heart while she was wearing the medic, which is according to the international law. If you wear something that it shows you are on a duty, you should be safe. So unfortunately, journalists were killed, nurses were killed, including Razan. But this person was relentlessly working on borders, and that's why she's a symbol of resilience and resistance. So that's my studio in 2017. Sorry, 2016. I was painting every single day. I produced only in 1 year around 300 pieces, drawings, sketches, and studies. Also, I have to mention that that my uncle also guided me through my art career in how to paint and in how to research and how to also express yourself with medium. Um, so I had my exhibition in the Gaza Strip uh, in 2015, which was really, uh, for me, it was one of the most important events to paint and to exhibit my artwork in the same place that I was really traumatized, that I survived this 3 wars back then, and also a lot of difficulty growing up because, as I said, you grow up in a place of conflict, and this conflict lives with you as a child. Since that time, I had many exhibitions around the world, also university talks, reading tour in many European countries, in the US, in Turkey, and in several Arab countries. Um, so these are in Europe, in Jerusalem, in Switzerland, in the US. So I have to here a little bit. This is, as you see, this recreation of Picasso's painting. Uh, I did it when I was really during this time of the demonstrations. And this kid's story, I found it really appealing because this child was working with his father in the farmer, and he, a way to protect himself, he lived near the siege, near the fence of the Great March of Return. He put an onion as a way to avoid the tear gas getting into his lungs, which proved to work for people who used this method. I recreated it in a way to find this connection and this contradictory between the past and the present. So this story is one of the stories that I found really important because as a child, you dream of peace, but in reality, you live with so much conflict. So this painting, this image is uh, something because, as I said, you cannot really travel from the Gaza Strip. But when you travel, it's a piece of hell. I went through this border when I was really young. In 2017, I decided to leave the Gaza Strip and to pursue my education outside. Although it came with a heavy price because as a kid, 17-year-old girl living in a conservative place, traveling on my own was a very difficult decision for the society, for the family, and even for me. But I felt like I needed to get my message and my story out. And the only way I could do it is by traveling. I lost 1 year waiting for the border to open. And I finally was permitted after months of waiting to leave the Gaza Strip to pursue my education in Turkey. I lived very horrible. It was a nightmare staying in the border through Egypt. So we have the Gaza Strip is both occupied by Israel. I would never be able to cross through Israel and Egypt. They are also closing the border, and that's the only way we can leave as Gazans. But of course, it comes with a lot of struggle. Some people are not permitted to travel. Some people get deported, and some people uh, they are banned forever to leave without any reason. I left on my own on Turkey. It was a really interesting experience. Um, Istanbul was so big for me. I was able to explore it and discover it. While being there, it was not easy as someone who did not speak Turkish. But I'm graduating next summer, which is really exciting. So my experience in Turkey was quite beautiful because how can I say I left the Gaza Strip feeling that Gaza was everywhere in the world. But when I left Turkey, when I left the Gaza Strip, Gaza was not there. So it was more like an identity crisis. Um, like Turkey was so beautiful, but was also very hard. As for me, as a girl, as a young person, it was a lot of puzzle. But when I left the Gaza Strip, really had this nostalgic feeling, and this was clear in my artwork. So this painting of embracing homeland, I felt like I left the Gaza Strip, but it did not leave me. Also because I was traumatized as a 17-year-old person, but also because the experience of being in a foreign country on my own was really difficult, and it made me miss uh, the comfort that I had with my family back in the Gaza Strip. So my artwork in quarantine was more into finding tranquility and peace, as well reflection. So I started painting sleeping women uh, that I see myself in. This is a painting I did as a response of the woman murder in my own hometown. Four women within 1 week lost their lives by their partners. And also, it was in my mind, I grew up with the stories of as well Palestinian women getting shot by the occupation in the checkpoints, and also a story that I grew up with. A woman from the Gaza Strip, she was pregnant and she was not allowed to cross the checkpoint, and she died waiting for the permission while she was in labor. So I have to stop here a little bit because this painting might remind you of uh, the poster of Rose Riveter that was famous in the US. So this painting, I did it. A girl like my age, Razan al-Najjar, no, her name was Israel Ghraib. She also was killed by her father and by her brother for what's so-called honor killing. Um, that I'm sure is really popular, not only in the Middle East, but all over the world. So this woman story got really viral back in 2019. And it was really alarming for me as someone who grew up very critical of the society order and also the gender inequality, especially in places like the Gaza Strip and also in Palestine. It's very like interesting to see how the women or the women violence increases at the time of the occupation. So this painting is to honor the strength of the women who are able to live under occupation with the with the loss of their husbands or their fathers or brothers, because a lot of men lose their life during these times. So this is a tribute for the strength of women. This is the pandemic in the Gaza Strip. The mosque is the Guernica painting, and it was more like a response of the unreadiness of the Gaza Strip to live with the pandemic. This is in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter, because as Palestinians, I do feel that I can really see how much the oppression that the Black the African American people face in the U.S. So I found, as someone who comes from a very oppressive background, I can really relate to the struggles that happen around the world. And this is a portrait of George Floyd. This is one of my favorite painting. It's called You and I, and it's inspired by a poem by a Palestinian poet. He said, "You and I, you are beautiful like a liberated homeland, and I am exhausted like a colonized one." And it was a cover feature of GQ, which was one of the highlights of this year. So in 2021, which is 7 months ago, I went on a vacation, or not a vacation, after 4 months of trying to get back to visit my family and to visit my home. I was able to go into the Gaza Strip after a very long way. And unfortunately, I became another attack survivor. I lived 11 days of horrendous attack. That was the hardest, only 11 days, but I've witnessed much more trauma than the previous experiences because of the advanced military usage of weapons and also rockets. So I painted, this is a portrait of my family and how we were all gathering beside my mom as a way to find safety and safety and also support as a support system. So this is a series of painting I did and I'm still doing for my upcoming exhibition in Canada. So this painting is called My Mother, and it's a documentation of the May attack. Sorry for the terrible quality, but this is the book inspired by my life story, and it's dedicated to my sister. She's only 11 years old, and she was the guidance of this book because she experienced pretty much what I experienced in my life. And yeah, I'm sorry I don't have a PDF to show you the whole book, and I don't think we have enough time. But I would really love to receive any of your questions and hopefully answer all of them. So I wanted to show I also tried my best to document the experience of the attack by my phone. So this is, are you able to see it?
Yeah, we can see it. We can see it. Is that the end of your presentation?
Sorry?
Is
Yeah.
that okay? Perfect. Thank you very much for the very moving presentation and talking about your art and also about your experiences, however graphic they may have been. I'm sure you've censored a lot of it, but nevertheless, it's hard to imagine and practically impossible to put ourselves in your shoes. I must ask, the poet that you just quoted, is that Mahmoud Darwish?
No, his name is Murid al-Barghouthi.
Okay.
To his wife, the Egyptian novelist Radwa Ashur.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I do have a question about your exhibition in Gaza. So you've only exhibited in Gaza once?
So no, I had group exhibitions in the Gaza Strip.
Okay.
One when I was 15 and the other when I was 17. So I was always showing along other artists. But yeah, I left the Gaza Strip really young, 17. So I was not really familiar after I was 17 with the exhibitions and also the art scene.
How do you see the feedback to your art having transformed since your first exhibition?
That's a great question. I mean, in my solo exhibition, a lot of positive. I was surprised with the positive feedback I received by people. They were really moved, and for me, the best compliment was, "We feel the artwork." So I was so keen that people were able to relate to the artwork because we have collective experience with surviving wars. All the professors, they came, all male professors, they said, go back to your school, finish art school, and then open a solo exhibition because I needed formal education. But I was like this rebel. I was always painting, exhibiting. I did not really, uh, I did not care so much about destructive criticism. I was like having this thick skin. Uh, but yeah, I was like, it was a really good experience for me, and I was really honored to exhibit my artwork in my hometown.
That's wonderful. I think the audience may have questions. I think I might let some of them speak so they can talk to you. I'm going to allow one of the questions through.
Okay.
Please just introduce yourself before you ask a question, a short introduction, your name or wherever you're speaking from, and ask your question. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kiran Khalid, and I'm lecturer at Agriculture University, Faisalabad, and I'm teaching here fine arts subject. It was very good experience. Uh, it was really, really very good experience to attend your webinar, and I have seen your paintings, and your work is very heart touching. And I think so that you have shown your own story, and it is based on true story. So I have seen hollow in your painting. In many paintings, you have used hollow in the background of your figures. So can you explain it? Is it inspired from Greek art, or what is the meaning of hollow?
That's a good question. Thank you so much for asking. I remember when I was young, my mom, she's a teacher, and we went with her students to one of the churches in the Gaza Strip. I remember it was the Rome Orthodox Church, and I was so fascinated by the painting in this church, in the roof and on the sides. And I remember these hollow after this visit started evolving in my artwork. And I do feel that when I paint my figures with this hollow, I pay them respect. For example, the portrait I did for the medic who was murdered, I feel like I'm paying her attribute, and I'm also paying her uh, respect. So I think it was mainly inspired by my visit to the church, and also by how much the hollow and the golden hollow uh, means to me.
Thank you. If the audience has any more questions, you can just raise your hands and you can ask a question. Tell me, who among Palestinian artists do you consider as inspirations beyond Suleiman Mansour, of course?
You're right. Liman Mansour was the first person I wanted to mention. There are so many artists that I really love. Mona Hatoum, she's Palestinian, Lebanese artist and illustrator. Samia Al-Halabi, she's one of the pioneer abstract painter. She's also from Palestine. I love the artwork of Tamam Al-Akhal. She's Palestinian artist from Yafa. Ismail Shammout. I love the painting of. I'm trying to remember the name. 1 second. I'm trying to remember, but I'm having two names confused. But yeah, these are the painters. My uncle, I'm a big fan of my uncle's work. His name is Muhammad Sallam. He's abstract and also, I would say, a very genius illustrator.
And how about artists from around the Arab world? I think I have a personal few favorites. India Khatun is definitely a personal favorite of mine, and also Salwa Raula Shukair from Tunisia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, how about yourself?
Sorry, what was the question?
Other artists from the Arab world, the wider Arab world.
Yeah, I mean, I have several favorites, but I really love the calligraphy that a Tunisian artist does. His name is El Said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think you know him. Um, Yeah, I'm trying to remember more, but I'm more into like my special favorite are North African artists. I love the Algerian artist Baya. She worked with Picasso, and unfortunately, she did not get uh, the publicity that Picasso get in his life. And yeah.
Great. I think we have more questions. I'm just gonna allow them. Right.
Okay, okay, so can you tell me that which painting is your most favorite?
Oh, uh, Ms. Karen, you can go ahead. I think the other one is not speaking. I think.
Okay, okay. Can you tell me that which painting is your most favorite? As I have seen that all of the paintings are very good. It's, so can you tell me that which is very close to your heart?
Uh, I did not hear very well. Uh,
She
Nihal,
was
did you
Which
hear that?
paint,
she was asking which one of your works is among your favorites.
Yeah, my favorite is You and I. That was after the poem of Murid al-Barghouti, You and I, you are beautiful like a liberated homeland, and I'm exhausted like a colonized one. It's one of my favorites.
Right. I think we have another question, Dr. Beenish.
Hello, hi, I'm Dr. Beenish Israr. I am also working in Agriculture University, Faisalabad. Actually, my background is not fine art, but I just want a question from you that if someone is don't have a background of fine art or someone is not an artist, from your experience, did you recommend them to enter in the field, or what type of special suggestion would you recommend them to do before entering into this field or to become an artist?
Thank you so much, Doctor, for your question. I mean, I would really say that a person look at so many art to know what art is so close to them. The mediums of art are so wide. So there's visual art, there's I would say there's cinema, there's so there are so many fields that art uh, can include. So I would say that it's very important to have knowledge. For example, reading in the art history, reading about art schools, reading about the most famous artists and also their own lives and how they see the world around them. So I would say, to begin with, I would say look at so many art, see what art speaks to you the most. Is it the medium of paintings? Is it music? Is it sculptures? Is it video art? Is it art performance? And then you can, from there, you can do your own research, or you can join an art school that would help you improve the way you can look at these resources, and can also benefit you by, always group work is such an important way for knowledge, for influence, and also for your own research. But for me, as a painter, I'm always curious, and I think curiosity is very important for anybody to learn about anything. Courage is also important. If you feel like a draw. Don't fear. I think fear is one of the biggest obstacle. Also, I do have fear as an artist, but I think it's so important to confront this fear and to always experiment, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience, because both are so important for the process or the progress of any artist or any human. And for me, this will sound a little bit a cliche, but I do feel that every human being has an artist inside them. I mean, the way you choose your clothing, the way you choose to decorate your home, the way you choose to the things that are close to you, like a piece of art or a painting or a picture. I think we all have our own taste, and we can see it in a very tiny details in our surroundings.
Thank you. I was just wondering that when I visited your profile, I can't figure out that you're not from the fine art background because your painting is very strong. So that's why I was asking that. Uh, is there any sort of professional training that you get it, or this art is just did it by yourself, or you just learn from the surrounding, um, or just from your experience?
That's a good question. I think my uncle has played an important role in my training. I learned how to start with anatomy. I've also joined the classes in Turkey, summer classes in Turkey of compositions and with art theory, which were really helpful. I would say being around artists from different background has also helped my own experience as an artist. So I always try my best to sketch, to also research, to learn as much as I can, to read. So it's everyday practice that I take to improve myself as an artist. So it's a very daily research. But I'm definitely making an MFA, like joining a master degree of fine arts that would really help me advance my art career as an artist. But as I said, like as a 22-year-old person, I know that I'm still in the beginning of my art career, but I have this curiosity always, and I have this courage to always improve and seek ways and maybe expand with using different mediums that would work better for me to tell my own story and my own voice. So I'm really excited for having this long journey with art and to more experiments too.
I think building on that, I have one last question for you. How do you balance your art practice and your professional education and work?
That's hard. I mean, it's a struggle. I mean, I really struggle because the university work is heavy. It's really heavy sometimes. I do have to go to school, to university every single day, except weekends. Uh, being studying something that is not really related to my art is also hard, but I'm enjoying learning about different things that are not very much connected. It's very hard to balance, and it's very hard to balance not only art and university work, but it's also my mental health. I still think I'm processing, and I'm still traumatized, and I go through a lot of depression and a lot of days that I don't feel like waking up. So I do try my best to have a schedule, to exercise as I can, to sketch, to do something that I really like, and to also rest. I do rest, and I try not to feel so much pressured, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's good. It's positive.
I think we have one last question from the audience. I think it's one of the students who wants to ask the question, so I think they'll just go ahead and
Hi,
ask.
hi, my name is Mehbatul. I'm a student of Home Sciences. I like to paint myself, but like I studied your profile and you started the painting from a very younger age, and you have a very traumatized background, like you were locked. And when it says that when you are young and got into such a trauma, it gives a very harsh imprints on your mind. So how come you overcome that and started painting? That's a very big question coming into my mind.
Thank you so much, Mehbatul. I mean, I think I'm able to, in a way, to transform my traumatic experience and the negative energy and thoughts associated with my experience into creation. I don't feel creating artwork is a choice or something I do for fun or something I do because I enjoy. I do feel I paint to exist. I'm a stateless. I don't have a country. Palestine is my country, but internationally, unfortunately, I'm called a stateless person. We are still fighting as Palestinians to try to find a platform to talk and to connect with people and to tell our stories. And we are getting there, but not yet. So I do feel that I paint because I do want my voice to be heard through the medium of art. I want to also painting by itself. despite of what the content of the artwork, it's a strong message by itself, because I'm a person who've been called terrorist several times, who've been called terrible names. But the fact that I paint is the fact that I am a peaceful person who chose this medium of art to tell my story, because I believe it's powerful. But I live with the trauma of the attack every single day. I do feel it's so present in my cells that I cannot forget it. And because I cannot forget it, I cannot stop making art. And I do feel when in May, I also survived 11 days of horrific Israeli attack. It was a random bombings all over the city, and I remember I was like losing hope that I will survive for the fourth time, because I was like, okay, you survived 3 attacks and you were lucky, but the fourth time you are not this lucky. So I remember when I survived, I was in denial. Like, how did I survive? When death was so close, it was almost there. So I remember one day after the ceasefire, I got up straight to my studio creating. It did not take a double thinking or a double thought for me to just go to my place and to create and keep moving. Although the only art store in the Gaza Strip was completely damaged. It was bombed by Israel, and Israel banned the entry of canvas to the Gaza Strip. So since that attack, the canvas, which is the medium you paint on, we're not allowed to entry because we are not allowed to share our stories. Uh, but if there's no canvas, we use other mediums, no problem. So I left the Gaza Strip and continued painting, and I'm still painting.
Yeah, that's very patient of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think we will bring the session to a close. Malak, thank you very much for this very intriguing, very interesting talk. It's definitely been a learning experience this past 1 hour. Seeing your art, learning from your experiences, learning about your experiences. Of course, we pray and hope for the better future of the people of Palestine, and of course, for your mental health. And of course, good luck with your university. You're about to graduate. We hope to see you again soon in Pakistan. With that, I'd also like to thank the audience for joining in today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nihal, and thank you everyone who tuned in.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.